Hello, my name is Scott Dahl, and I'm a master's program director and professor of digital marketing and revenue management at Roches in Crown, Montana. Welcome to Leading Hospitality Through Turbulent Times. This session will be a presentation of about 35 minutes with 10 minutes for questions at the end. We're only taking questions in writing, and you can submit them by using the chat function as we go along. As always, it's a quick reminder that this session is being recorded and will be available on your school's Moodle platform afterwards. I'm really looking forward to today's session. Our first guest is the managing principal for the hospitality practice at ZS, a professional services firm with a presence in a number of different interesting industries. According to her LinkedIn profile, she's also a revenue strategist and an analytics evangelist, whatever that is. I'm sure we'll learn more about that. She's earned a bachelor's degree from Georgetown University and 2 advanced degrees, including a PhD in revenue management from Cornell University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kelly McGuire. Hi, Kelly. Do me a favor and start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what a revenue evangelist does at ZS.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I am a firm believer in the value of data and analytics, AI and machine learning, and what those techniques can bring to the hospitality industry. And I've spent most of my career just making sure everyone knows that too. And so that's the evangelist part. And I've been fortunate to be able to kind of travel around the world, speaking to folks, understanding really what the issues that the industry faces are, and then helping them understand how analytics can really provide some great insights to move the business forward. And so, that's kind of where that came from. I mean, I'm working right now for ZS, which is the largest consulting company in the world that focuses strictly on supporting the commercial function. And we have analytics in our DNA at ZS. So as you can imagine, that's a great fit for what I love to do. And it's only been 2 months now, so I'm a recent joiner, but I have a real opportunity here as we bounce through this current turbulent times and into the recovery to continue to move the industry forward. Prior to ZS, I was Senior Vice President of Revenue Management with MGM Resorts. So I am out here in Las Vegas. That's why it looks a little dark outside. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning here, but this is how excited I am about being with you guys and having this conversation. Before I was at Wyndham, I was Vice President of Advanced Analytics. Before I was at MGM, I was Vice President of Advanced Analytics for Wyndham Destination Network. And so I've got that kind of commercial side with the revenue management, and then the advanced analytics side from Wyndham. So it's all coming together for me in this new job, so to speak.
Fantastic. We'll get a chance to talk about it, of course, quite a bit. But one of the connections that you and I have is we had an opportunity to have you speak to our HSMAI group in January in London, and you presented, in my opinion, the most elegant version of what AI is, and perhaps more importantly, what it is not, in terms of it being able to be understood, as opposed to it being just some really cryptic thing that a lot of us didn't follow. So looking forward to speaking with you more today about that kind of stuff. But before we move on to our next guest, I'm sure everyone out there, these are hotel students, they'd love to know what it's like to have a senior leadership position with a company like MGM. So just what was that like?
Oh my God, it was awesome. Look, we have, MGM has 40,000 rooms out in Las Vegas, and across 12 different properties, about half of which opened just a week ago tomorrow. Thank goodness. We were looking forward to that here in Vegas. So, I mean, revenue managing a casino is an incredibly complex and dynamic job, because you have to balance, the normal transient demand, the massive groups demand that we do in Las Vegas, and then kind of layer that in with the casino segment from the gaming floor, which brings a whole lot of value to the company, but definitely not in room rate. And so it is quite a different nuance to the traditional revenue management problem, and you get to do it in the entertainment capital of the world, which has been fabulous. So lots of great stories from my time at MGM, and really looking forward to Vegas bouncing back. that there are some appropriate stories and some less appropriate stories about what happens in Vegas. Scott, I'm not sure we'll get into all those today, but happy to dig a little deeper about the nuances if time permits.
I'm guessing that just significantly increased your LinkedIn requests as a result of this session. So yeah, it's interesting that you stayed in Vegas, and I'm sure for an analytics evangelist, really cool to incorporate that additional revenue stream. Quite frankly, that can be larger than rooms. So very interesting to balance all of those things. Okay, let's bring on our next guest before we talk too long. Our next guest is a great friend of Roches already. Let's see here next. And he's an industry-leading expert in hospitality technology and digital marketing. He founded Next Guest Hospitality, which is the industry's leading provider of third-party digital marketing services. He too is super educated, having earned a master's degree in economics and international tourism and hospitality from Fordham, as well as an MBA from Fordham. He's now an adjunct professor at NYU University at the Tisch Center for Hospitality, and I'm super proud to say he's also visiting professor of digital marketing in our new master's in hospitality strategy and digital transformation at Roches. So before I run out of breath, please welcome me and please join me in welcoming to the series my good friend Max Starkov. Hey Max.
Hey guys, how are you? Good morning from New York City.
So Max, do me a favor. Just same goes for you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have a checkered past, similar to Kelly's, and unlike Las Vegas, where whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, I can freely disclose what I've been doing in my life. 40 years in our beloved industry, undergraduate, similar to what many of the participants here have, undergraduate in hospitality, master's degree in hospitality and tourism, and then MBA. I worked as a general manager of a hotel, worked for the Ministry of Tourism of my native Bulgaria, where I come from. I was director of the Government Tourist Office for North America of the Republic of Bulgaria. And in the early 1990s, I started my own businesses, a bed bank, which is a very modern term nowadays. Back in the day, it was unheard of. So one of the first wholesale hospitality companies, bed bank, that's pre-internet. And then, of course, hotel representation company. We represented 3,500 hotels here in North America from Europe. And when the internet came, I jumped both feet with my first internet startup, travelbreak.com, but that was back in 1995. We were immediately after Priceline back in the day, as far as the visitations and so forth. And after travelbreak.com, I founded Well Media Technologist, which was the first third-party hotel booking engine. Long before TravelClick, long before Synexis, long before all of these third-party online, I would say, booking engine and CRS, central reservation systems out there. And then since 2000, I founded Hebs Digital, which is now the Next Guest, which is again, a 150 employee strong digital marketing technology and digital marketing services company with offices in Asia Pacific, Europe, in Vegas, and of course, headquartered here in New York City. So that's what I have been doing in my life. 40 years of being directly related, directly working with, directly working at hotels.
Excellent. Thanks, Max. And as I mentioned, Max and I have an opportunity to work together sometimes, including on the new program we have coming up. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your opinions in this forum today, Max. So before we start digging into the more detailed stuff about technology and digital transformation. I want to be a little more general for a second. You guys are two of the best connected hoteliers that I know, quite frankly. And I'm really curious, like, we're starting to see some signs of recovery and some of that sort of thing. What's the most recent you're hearing from your friends that run hotels? And let me go to you first, Max, this time for an answer.
Well, I mean, there's a cautious optimism, I would say. I mean, already, especially here in North America, 39% of hospitality workers, employees that were employed before the crisis, let's say 3 months ago, are already back to work. 39% from the pre-crisis level, which is pretty good. Occupancies are already inching upward to 40%. I mean, STR will announce this week 39%, close to 40% occupancy rates. Of course, it's way below last year, way below. I mean, ADRs and RevPARs are way below last year. But generally speaking, there's a cautious optimism. There's a very interesting indicator here in North America about the recovery, and this is the number of air passengers who clear security at the airports before they board. There's a national statistics. So last week already we inched toward the 500,000 passengers per day level, which is unheard of, at least for the last 3 months. The lowest was less than 100,000. Last week already we reached 500,000 processed passengers per day in North America. I mean, we are way behind 1.2 million daily passengers that typically travel in the United States in a normal time of the year. But all of these are positive signs that the economy is rebounding on one hand. On the other hand, the travel is rebounding, which helps our hotels. Here in New York City, over a third of the hotels were closed. Now many of them are opening cautiously. So in this sense, I see already, people coming, driving traffic, already coming to the city and so forth. So overall, I think that it is a positive development that our friends hoteliers are kind of cautiously optimistic again.
Cool. Yeah, I'm actually hearing some similar stuff. And so now let me ask you, Kelly. Same question. What are you hearing from your friends about how things are in the last couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, the story. I think cautious optimism is probably a good adjective. I mean, it was grim. Even a month ago, it was bad, and I was worried about my liver. I would get off the phone with good friends and, just need a cocktail to recover from the conversation. I mean, this is the industry I love, and it was really, really grim out there. But I think, like Max said, we're seeing some green shoots. There's cautious optimism, but I think everybody recognizes it's definitely a long road ahead. But I mean, I will say this. Vegas is already accelerating the reopening because of the demand that they're seeing. Demand picture for the next 6 months is better than they expected. And what I mean by accelerating the reopening is a lot of the bigger brands, MGM, Caesars, the ones with multiple properties, or even the ones with multiple towers and the ability to open floors at a time. They were going to open buildings on a phased kind of approach, and they've accelerated the phases, which I think, potentially is a good sign. But the reality is we've got some scary signs too. I mean, we've got, cases increasing in certain markets that have been open for longer than others, and a real concern that maybe folks have sort of, from being pent up for so long, are not taking this as seriously as they should. So I hear a lot more of the caution on the cautiously optimistic, and are we going to do this the right way? Because it could be devastating if there's a second wave, and people then get even more scared to be back out traveling again. So, in the end, yeah, there's reason to be optimistic, but we have a long road ahead. I mean, that's just reality, and we'll get through it. But it's not over by any means.
Agreed.
Okay, there's the grimness.
I think we'll probably end up a couple times getting pretty close to some discussion about what segments probably are the ones to show recovery and where, some of those, as you mentioned, green shoots, which I think is a really cool term, where some of those green shoots are starting to appear, because it's a little, it's actually not surprising if you really think about it in some of the places, but it's a little funny, right? You see very weird tertiary beach markets coming back, but Miami Beach not coming back and things like that. So, it's kind of an interesting, piece. But so we've talked a lot about hotels. Let's shift a little bit, because you guys are super connected on the on what I would call the part of the business that is actually not hotels, but it's companies that help hotels do better, right? Companies that help hotels perform better. And so, how would you say that this crisis has impacted those guys? And Kelly, let me stick with you for a second and tell us how you feel.
Yeah, one of the things that really, I guess, surprised me, and maybe shouldn't have, about what happened starting in March, was the ripple effects of these kind of crises. So you get a halt to travel, and then that ripples out to the providers and vendors to the industry, and then the neighborhoods that the hotels are in, et cetera, et cetera. And so a lot of the, obviously I'm pretty well connected in the revenue management vendor space and kind of analytics applications, and they were, there was belt tightening there as well. But I think what was really interesting about this, some driven by necessity and some driven just by opportunity, a lot of these revenue management providers doubled down on R&D. So to a certain extent, they had to, because the whole world changed and the algorithms needed to adapt and adopt to the new normal. And so there was a lot of scrambling around to say, what do we need to do to the core to make sure that the systems stay relevant? But a lot of them said, look, we've got some time now, and to think about things in a different way. So let's take that, and I think we're going to see some innovation, coming out of this, despite the really negative impacts of the belt tightening, on the side of the service providers too. So some of the conversations I've had, we've been thinking about things in a different way, which is a positive. So it's good and bad news there.
I mean, I think that's really cool. I think that that's sort of what we talked about in terms of the recovery, always having some sort of an innovation time period associated with it as well. And I will definitely get into that a little bit in terms of how we've talked a lot and it had many different perspectives. And one of them is that any of your, any demand curve you have today, any forecast system you have today, throw it out. But that's a very interesting perspective, that as the provider of those types of services, you want to make sure that you're trying to adjust right now to make your product viable as quickly as possible. So that'll be an interesting conversation. We talk about what's probably going to stick as we go forward, for sure. How about you, Max? What about on the tech side? What are you seeing? How are things changed in terms of the amount of activity at NextGuest, for example? And obviously people are marketing differently, but are they marketing more or less? And how's that all changed?
Well, I mean, let me broaden the question. And first of all, before the crisis, most of hoteliers still believe that we in hospitality are in a real estate business. So many, as you know, ownership groups are primarily financial institutions, REITs and so forth, real estate investment funds and so forth. So the prevailing thought in the industry has been for a very long time that hospitality is a real estate business. And again, the same ownership that owned hotels, owned residential buildings, owned commercial buildings, and so forth, and they treated hospitality as a real estate business. While in fact, if you look at how our guests have changed over the last, I would say, 10, 15 years, our guests have become exceptionally tech savvy, exceptionally digitally savvy. And there was this huge discrepancy between our guests and our hotels. I'll give you one example. 15 years ago, when you went to a hotel, you always found better technology, better bedding, better amenities and services than your own home. That was the typical scenario. That's no longer the case. Any hotel that you go today, you have better amenities, better Wi-Fi, better technology at your own home than any hotel that you go on planet Earth. And this huge discrepancy kind of went unnoticed for our industry, is that our guests have surpassed us as hoteliers, have surpassed us as far as technology is concerned, as far as digital amenities are concerned, and so forth. You go to a hotel. I mean, even in Vegas, you go to a hotel, and what do you have? HBO. Who cares about HBO? I have HBO on the go on my device. I want my streaming services. I want my Netflix. I want my Hulu. I don't care about your HBO because I already have my own series that I follow and so forth. So how can I stream on the TV in the room? Impossible. In many hotels, it's impossible. So the same is with mobile voice assistants, if you will, a lot of IoT devices, temperature up, temperature down. The whole point that I'm trying to make is that it's about time for us to understand that hospitality is a technology-empowered service industry. We are not a real estate industry. And if we don't change that, if we don't change that mentality, I believe that we will lose a lot of precious customers. We will lose them to Airbnb. We will lose them to other forms of accommodations like that are emerging right now, and that specifically, I would say, cater to the digital nomads, the digitally advanced travel consumers, which we see that anybody that can afford to stay at a 3, 4, 5-star hotel today is already digitally savvy and already tech savvy. So my whole point is that I believe that this crisis that we went through will accelerate the technology adoption at the hotels, whether we like it or not, whether we want to invest or not. For example, contactless check-in and so forth. I mean, for how many years mobile check-in has existed as a function, as a technology? Quite often, it's a simple app where you pay $100 a day. $100 per month, or for $200 per month, or $3 per room per month. This technology has existed for, I would say, nearly half a decade now, and yet very few hotels have adopted it. Now they have to adopt it. It's simply because guests demand the least amount of contacts from check-in, check-out, opening the doors, and so forth. So these investments, first of all, at the property in the form of, again, mobile check-ins, even not, we will skip, I would say, the self-check-in kiosks because somebody has to touch the same screen as the previous guest. So we will skip this phase and we will go straight to contactless, or the minimum amount of contacts type of check-ins, check-outs, opening the door, key issuing, the issuing of the keys, whether it's a mobile key and so forth. And then in the room, the same applies to all of the devices in the room, from, I want the air conditioning up, the air conditioning down, the lighting up, the lighting down, all of this, whether we like it or not, will become controlled by a mobile assistant, voice assistants, or it will be tied to our guest profile and to our preferences. I mean, already Marriott, Hilton are working on smart rooms where all of the amenities in the room tied to your preferences in your loyalty profile, so that if you like a brighter room, if you want, basically the room knows who you are, and the room expects you, and the room adjusts itself to who you are. So in this sense, that's the future, and technology will lead the way. Again, we have to change the mentality in the industry, starting from education. Is that we are not a real estate industry. That's the key here. We are a technology-driven service industry. End of story. And if students can understand that, if faculty can understand that, our industry will be far better off in the years to come.
I think you're absolutely right, Max. I even know when I travel, 15 years ago, I was excited. I would walk into the room, I'd see a flat panel TV. The first thing I would do is turn it on. I'd blow through the channels. It was an exciting event. Now I walk into the room, and if it's not at least 50-inch diagonal and it won't connect to my own devices so I can watch my own preferences, I don't even turn it on. I'm sitting on the bed watching a Samsung Note as opposed to watching this television that's hanging on the wall for no reason. So I think you make a great point. So let's make a jump now in a little bit more into your area of specialization, and then we'll go to Kelly in a second and kind of do the same thing. But you're obviously considered one of the thought leaders in digital marketing and hospitality distribution. So I'm going to ask you to do this with you. I'm going to ask you to jump into my pre-COVID time machine and think back for a second and just kind of reflect a little bit. What were the hot topics the day before you found out about COVID? Like, what was really, we've kind of forgotten. There was some stuff going on, right? And what was that?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right that we quickly forget what were the hot topics of the day, and because COVID truly changed the whole tune and changed the whole direction of the industry. But
it redefined hot, I think, is what happened. But yeah,
I agree. Okay, so first of all, when talking about hospitality, two separate, I would say, categories: branded hotels and independents. Branded hotels, it was all about the group market, all about the loyalty members. I mean, already in January, 60% of room nights generated by Hilton, by Marriott, came from loyalty members. 60%. In the same time, independent hotels outside of Vegas, independent hotels have, I mean, if you look at the loyalty members, it means repeat business to the brand. Maybe not to the property itself, but it's repeat business to the brand. So 60%, you're a general manager, you wake up in the morning and say, well, I know that 60% of my guests tonight will be loyalty members. So let me go and find, me and my team, go and find the remaining 40%. If you fast forward to an independent hotel, 10 to 15% of room nights generated at independent hotels worldwide come from repeat business. So if you're a general manager, you wake up in the morning and you say, well, I know that tonight 10% of my guests, I already know them. They have been at my property, I know their names, I know their preferences. So let us go and find 90% of the guests for tonight. I mean, if I were a general manager of an independent hotel, I wouldn't want to get out of bed under this scenario. So this was, I would say, the crucial point. Independent hotels, repeat business, meandering at between 10 and 15%, and increased dependence on the online travel agencies, the Expedia, Booking, and so forth, increased dependency. And at the same time, you have the branded hotels with increased contribution by loyalty members and increased contribution by the direct channel. I mean, you have, for example, because you're in Europe, before the crisis, 80 to 85% of online generated room nights came from the OTAs, and only 10 to 15% came from the hotel's own website or direct channel. So we're talking about it's almost like 5 to 1. 5 to 1. So while the branded hotels they have figured out, and especially the stronger brands in Europe, IAG, for example, Accor, Marriott, Hilton, I'm giving as examples, they have managed to reverse the ratio, and they generate from online room nights 3-to-1, even in some cases 4-to-1 from the direct channel versus OTAs. So those were the pre-COVID, I would say, big hot topics. How do we increase a repeat business? How do we lessen the dependence on the OTAs? And unfortunately, many of the independent hotels have simply given up. They have given up. Yes.
So now let me ask you to do this. Climb back in my time machine. And despite the gigantic warning on the dashboard that says never set it to 2020, we're going to go ahead and set it to 2020 and come back. And now, I mean, what's the hot topic now, Max? It's definitely changed, but what is it?
The hot topic in the industry is don't discount your rates, because discounted rates do not generate demand, do not generate travel demand. And the main reason is the travel demand today is subject to the general perception of what the situation is out there, whether COVID-19 is under control, the cleanliness of the hotel, local regulations, mandates, and so forth, local restrictions. So if you discount your rates, how would that change, local regulations, for example, or local restrictions, or cleanliness? So what I mean is that this is one of the things that hoteliers are discussing very actively. Yet everybody is discounting rates.
There you go.
Including in Vegas.
And
they're everybody is discounting rates like crazy.
And they're pointing at the finger at someone else and saying they did it first. I've heard a lot of those conversations, unfortunately. Okay, now let's, I want to jump over to Kelly. Thank you, Max. By the way, thanks for the insight. In addition to revenue strategy, your thing's applying AI and machine learning to help hotels make more money. I mentioned there's definitely a talk. I know that's out there on LinkedIn that people can find, and they should definitely check that out because it's really just a fantastic introduction to AI in hospitality. But so let me ask you then, let's jump in that same time machine, right? We're going to go back to pre-COVID, and do me a favor, tell me a little bit about the conversations that you were having.
Boy, if only we could go back and never fast forward, Scott. I don't want to get back in your time machine. It's interesting. I was having, kind of two streams of conversation. I mean, there was interest in AI and machine learning, but a lot of what I was really doing was, to your point about the couple of talks there, is just demystifying, the kind of AI machine learning for business leaders conversation. What is this thing, and how can it help us? So we had some interest and some POCs here and there, kind of folks dabbling their toes. But a lot of what I was talking about, literally from like December to March, 5th or whenever the curtain dropped there, was I really believed, based on everything I was seeing in industry, that the revenue management function in hotels was in a little bit of a rut. And so we'd been talking about total hotel revenue management for 20 years and not doing anything about it. We've been talking about working more closely with our counterparts in digital marketing and sales and not doing anything about it. We've been talking about being better communicators, and yet we still had these contentious relationships with owners and asset managers, and weren't really, kind of thought of as strategic thinkers. And so I was coming down pretty hard on industry just before kind of everything changed. And so if I'll anticipate, Scott, where you would go with this, what has been interesting to me, obviously, this pandemic has upended everything in the hospitality and travel industries. But I also think within that, and we talked about this earlier, there's a huge opportunity. So the next piece that you'll see from me, if it's not out already, is a piece I did in Hospitality Upgrade, where I really think that this actually could be revenue management's finest hour. because here we have exactly the shakeup that we needed to have to think about things in a different way. My revenue leader friends said that they're having more conversations at a deeper level with their owners than they ever had before, more regular communication. So they're starting to get that trusted advisor relationship. We've cut teams down to the bone. So the commercial function will certainly emerge from the pandemic leaner, but more integrated. And we need to be agile and adapt. So it's not just about constant conversations about raising and lowering rates this weekend, but understanding the demand picture, setting up a strategy to address it when that changes, because it will tomorrow, then being agile enough to adapt the strategy for the next step. So if we do this right, and I believe we have an opportunity, then this could be the thing that pulls revenue management out of that rut and sets us on the path to do everything that we've just been giving lip service to for the last couple of decades and not really taking a lot of action on. And further, I'm really excited about us emerging into a place where suddenly we're realizing we have to do more with less, and automation becomes a real burning need as opposed to just a nice to have. If you've got to optimize your resources, automation of kind of key processes within the hotel can help you to do that. And so I believe that we're going to see a lot of adoption of automation in general, but particularly, AI and machine learning enabled automation into the future, just out of necessity. And so I've been having some really interesting conversations about, that sort of capability in the last little bit, and stuff I'm really excited about. So look, it's not gonna be great for a bit here. I keep coming back to that, but I think there is an opportunity, and we will see the industry embrace this, and after the shakeup, and really move forward in a different way, but in a really positive way, and in an exciting way. And so I am looking forward to that. So it's almost a morphing of the conversations that I was having pre-COVID, but not a and almost an acceleration, I'm starting to think, which is good, because I spent a lot of time thinking about all that stuff I was talking about pre-March, and so I'm glad we can keep having those conversations.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that and Max, you and I wrote an article specifically on that topic, right? Which is the whole piece of really not integrating the way we talked about integrating. And to me, it kind of reminds me of our industry in another way. We agreed 15 years ago that we didn't need to see a front desk clerk sweat to death in Dubai for that to be luxury. And yet it took us 15 years for luxury to finally lose the necktie in places where it's over 100 degrees every day. So it's not surprising that we're slow moving, but we're a little bit slow moving. I mean, let's be honest. There's no doubt about that. So guys, considering everything that we've spoken of, let me ask you now, Max, what do you think? We started to talk about it a little bit, and I'll ask you the same question, Kelly, because I think it's going to allow you to expand more on that piece that we were talking about. But what do you think is the likely lasting effect on digital marketing, on distribution, on technology as we emerge from all this?
I mean, first of all, consolidation in the industry that provides hoteliers with technology and services. All of digital marketing agency, there will be a major consolidation. There will be a major consolidation of CRM providers, all of the website design and development providers, simply because of as an effect from the crisis. So there will be consolidation. On the other hand, as far as digital marketing is concerned, I believe that there has already been consolidation in that field. For example, Google, with Google Hotel Ads, Google took over Kayak Hotels, Trivago, and TripAdvisor, and basically ate their lunch. So Google has now dominates not only reviews. Google has 3 times more reviews than TripAdvisor hotel reviews. Google has a market share in meta search that is equal to all the other players combined. So, and Google has integrated all of this into the Google ecosystem, where every single search, every single interaction with Google, with your Gmail, watching a video on YouTube is taken into consideration, is analyzed for travel intent, and then is used in Google Ads, which is the search ads. It's used in Google Hotel Ads, which is the hotel pricing ads, and so forth. So basically, Google has intertwined all of its different advertising formats in order to achieve the best results for the advertiser. And in this sense, you as a marketer, as a hotel marketer, you cannot be just on meta search. You can Google meta search, for example, or you cannot just do, we will do some paid search. You have to play in all of the different Google advertising formats in order to achieve the best results. And actually, at the next guest, we have stopped reporting on the different Google formats. For example, your budget for Google is $10,000. Here are the results, and how we use this $10,000 a month, for example, or $100,000. Whether we use them in Google Ads or Google Hotel Ads or video ads or in Gmail ads and so forth, or Google Display Network. It's we're the experts here, and that's what we do. And we shift, I would say, budget amounts from one format to another, but we report on Google as a whole, as an ecosystem. So that's one of the things that definitely will accelerate the post-crisis. On the other hand, outside of Google, there's very little left, unfortunately. So for hospitality, if you're a hotel in wherever, in London, you don't even have the choice of advertising media to choose from in order to promote your hotel. Where are you going to promote it? And the answer is Google, and maybe TripAdvisor, some banner advertising on TripAdvisor, but that's where it ends. This is the end of the. So what I mean is that the consolidation has already been done in digital, and Google has won the war. So yes, you have to do. You have to take care of your existing guests. You have to have CRM program in place, customer relationship management program in place. You have to try to increase and double and triple your repeat business, and that's where the main focus is. But acquiring new guests, it's Google, and it's becoming exceptionally expensive. So in this sense, focusing on your repeat business is the strategy that will emerge as the prevailing strategy after the crisis.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting the comment that you make about Google, and as Google works more and more to perfect its algorithm, it's getting actually closer to where if we just provide people the information they're looking for at the time that they're looking for it, we'll be rewarded by the traffic. And there's fewer and fewer opportunities to gig the system, so to speak, and really cheat it, right? It's really more about providing the information in a consumable way, and they continue to show us better and better ways to do that. And I think to a certain extent, it's time, in my opinion, to kind of stop fighting them until another alternative to fight them with comes along. So yeah, that's a really a good piece of insight. Now, Kelly, let me ask you a question. Slightly different space, right? Not so much the digital marketing space, a little more the technology and decision making and analytics space. But what do you expect to be the lasting outcomes in that space?
Yeah, I think by necessity, companies are going to be driven towards technology-enabled automation, whether we're sort of automating routine tasks that now humans execute within hotels. And I think there's a lot of interesting opportunity to infuse some automation solutions to support those routine tasks, so that the folks that sort of remain are able to focus on more complex, more strategic decision making. I see a lot of shifts now when I look across industry because of staffing cuts. The org structures within a lot of companies in the commercial function are changing. They're doing a lot more centralization. We've got revenue managers that are taking on more properties and more work. So there's been a real reevaluation of what activities are value add for the revenue manager to be performing and which aren't. And so I think, you start being sort of forced into thinking, okay, so if I still have to produce this report, but obviously for the time that the revenue manager is spending producing that report, they're not pricing, they're not managing demand, and they're not setting strategy. How do I still have, both of those things? And so I really see some acceleration in the adoption of technology in kind of the same way Max was alluding to, that we're getting to finally getting to touchless interactions and to more in-room technology. I think we're going to see more supporting technology in the back office just now out of necessity to kind of prop up spaces where we used to have bodies. So I'm excited about that because that's innovation and it changes the way the commercial function works, and it's going to make a lot of the jobs that were really just data manipulators into real strategists with business acumen that are really positively impacting the business. So we're on the precipice of, again, what could be something really great if folks have the courage to take that leap of faith. Not off the precipice. That I realized I backed myself into a corner on that one, but I think you know what I mean there. So
no, I think it's true. I think that one of the things I think is always a very interesting topic for people when it comes to AI and machine learning specifically is that whole concept of replacing versus enhancing the individual, right? And you used an amazing example in London. So unless you have a better one, I'm going to actually tee you up to tell the example of the of Waze and the issues with Waze and AI in Los Angeles during the fires, right? So just share that if you wouldn't mind. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. So what's interesting about AI and machine learning, and what's important for business leaders to understand is that these algorithms are programmed to do exactly what they're programmed to do, and if they're programmed to find the best answer, they're going to find the best answer. And we think that they think like people, which they sort of do, but they really don't. And so there's this great example, great and scary example of people using Waze to navigate out of the California wildfires. I mean, everyone is so used to using Waze to kind of get them, from A to B, anticipating all kinds of road hazards. But Waze was not programmed to understand fire as a hazard. And so it was the algorithms were sending people directly into the path of the fire because that was the path that was free of traffic, obviously. And so,
yes.
And so really, here's an unintended consequence of the AI that a human would recognize and would need to teach the algorithm. But the algorithm, without that human intervention, wouldn't recognize it. Now, we can't really blame the Waze developers for not thinking of fire. This is, again, an unintended consequence, but we have to keep an eye on these algorithms because there will be those unintended consequences if they if you're expecting them to completely replace human judgment and human knowledge and human intuition today. So, that's the cautionary tale of automation, but in certain key spots when it's very routine, with some, again, human judgment imposed in the development of the algorithms, they can be extremely useful in executing some of those repetitive tasks. But you got to be careful because, and you have to be watching because those unintended consequences are, not that unusual. And we'll see more of them, which will be really fun unless it happens to you.
Exactly. I love that example. I think that example does an amazing job of I think sometimes giving us a little bit of confidence that we're not going to completely be replaced, that maybe we can make more intelligent decisions and stop making repetitive ones, which is a good approach to it. Max, you I heard you laughing. So did you have a comment that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all of the next generation technology, which is already here, but we still call it next gen technology, coming, and it's whether we like it or not, will be replacing humans at many repetitive, dangerous, not only repetitive, dangerous, and I would say jobs that do not require a lot of imagination and a lot of creativity. Before the crisis, in the United States, there were 1 million hospitality jobs that were open positions in hospitality. We're talking about from wait staff, line cooks, housekeeping, front desk at hotels, and so forth. 1 million untaken positions, and there were no takers. Simply, there were not enough human bodies, to take these positions. So fast forward, the crisis come. Nearly 70% of hospitality employees in the United States were laid off or furloughed for certain periods of time. Luckily, 1 million were hired back over the last few weeks. But what I'm driving at is the following. After the crisis, and we're already almost after the crisis, hoteliers will need to find ways to lower their costs. And since labor takes 35 to 40% of the costs, of the operational cost of a hotel, labor will be one of the first, because you cannot lower your mortgage payments. You cannot lower, your utility bills will are lower simply because there are few occupied rooms, but not by much. Your taxes, your again, the real estate taxes, your mortgage payments, you have to pay no matter what. So my point is that labor, 35 to 40% of the cost, is where hotel owners and managers will be looking to cut. How do you cut labor? By automation, by introducing technology at all levels. It's not just AI, let's say, replacing revenue managers, but also robots. I mean, now we're talking about cleanliness. You have robots that you can rent with UVC lighting that go and zap any bug, any virus that you have in the hallways, in the rooms, or you have robots that spray, electrostatic sprayers, fine mist that penetrates everywhere in the room. Humans cannot do that, or humans can do that, but they need special equipment, special protective equipment. So robots are the best suited to do that. So, and we will see more and more robots in housekeeping, in cleaning rooms, more and more robots replacing front desk workers, mobile check-ins, which will, allows you to bypass the whole process of check-in and check-out. Robots as security guards, where you rent a robot at $5 an hour, while a security at the hotel costs you $25 an hour. Guess which one you will rent. The same is with, self ordering at restaurants or like fast food restaurants. When you introduce it, McDonald's, when you introduce self ordering kiosks, you don't need half of the personnel there. And then each of the kiosks pays for itself within 3 months. Same is with a bartender, robot bartender. I mean, in Vegas, you already have several of those. In New York City, there's several of those. That one bartender robot does the work of 4 bartenders, 4 times faster, more precise. There's no spillage. There's no waste of precious alcohol. So what they mean is that it saves costs on one hand, and it does the job for humans. So such professions we will see more and more automation, more and more robots doing the job, and they will do a much better job than us humans.
I think you're right, Max. I think that for our students, most of whom have visited Switzerland at some point or another, here a high volume McDonald's runs with 3 employees. Now it'll have 15 ordering kiosks, but it runs with 3 employees, and it runs quite efficiency, and people absolutely accept it. And something's obviously it's connected to an even higher labor rate here in this country than other places, but still the acceptance is very, very interesting. And now I wonder if maybe contactless is going to become the new luxury, and therefore all of these excuses, which have always been about the impersonal service that you get from a robot, are going to be replaced by the lack of an infection that you might get from a robot. And we may see a really, really, really rapid uptake in some of that technology in the next couple of years for sure. So guys, let's as we wrap it up, I could go on going with this forever, but I think there's probably some other people that are not quite as geeky as us. Therefore, we might have to worry about their attention span more than ours. But as we wrap this up, I want to take advantage of really just the combined hospitality industry wisdom that we've got today. And so there's hundreds of students right now that are going to be hearing this message that are getting ready to graduate into our industry in the near future. And so I'd just like to ask each of you kind of for a final word, for someone who's setting off on a path that's similar to the one that you guys have been successful on. And to show that I've learned a little bit about luxury hospitality since I moved here, let's do ladies first on this last one, and let's hear from Kelly.
Well, listen, I know we've, especially after Max's last comment, painted a grim picture of the need in hospitality for people, and I don't want you to think that is true. We are going to be deploying people in different ways in hospitality, and we will always need people who are comfortable in the new normal, who understand and at a deep and intimate level how all of the technology applications that we spoke about today connect to this really core characteristic of our industry, which is to deliver service. And people will always want that human connection at the service level. So don't be discouraged. And if it helps, I finished my master's in 2001 and emerged into the collapse of the tech bubble. And then I finished my PhD in 2007 and emerged into the greater cycle. And I am, and here I am. I switched jobs in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic, and I'm fine. I turned out just fine. So you will be fine. It'll take some patience and persistence, and it'll take some creative thinking on your part. If you had asked me in 1999 or 2000 what job I thought I would have in hospitality 20 years later, I would never have described this one. And so, and my specialty, with AI and machine learning, it wasn't even something that we was in the public lexicon at that point. So, patience, persistence, and a little creativity and an open mind, and you will be just fine. And I'm living proof of that.
Perfect. Okay, Max, final word.
I mean, my final word of advice is the following. Always focus on the technology behind whatever path in hospitality you choose. For example, if your revenue management is your main concentration, learn the technology behind it. And I would say go and work for a revenue management system technology vendor first, before going at a hotel. But learn the technology that powers revenue management today and that will power revenue management tomorrow. The same is with marketing. If you're in marketing, learn the digital marketing technology that powers today's digital marketing in hospitality. So this will open more doors to you. Technology, being technology savvy. You don't have to be a coder. You don't have to be software engineer. You have to become a technologist. Somebody who understands technology and the use of technology for business purposes in your everyday functions, whatever they are, whether they're operations, whether they're marketing, whether they're revenue management. So in this sense, focus on the technology behind it. Who are the vendors? What do these vendors do? There are a lot of online demos. Sign up for demos. Read the literature and the descriptions of what the technology can do. Get an internship, paid, unpaid, at a technology vendor, and so forth. My whole point is that technology will open your career in hospitality in a way that you would never do otherwise.
Yeah, Max, I tell you what, that's a fantastic final word. And just to throw a little spin on that, I think that one of the shortcomings right now in technology and hospitality is that we have technology people coming to hospitality with solutions, as opposed to hospitality people going to technology with their problems and really kind of working together to find a solution. And it's going to take hotel people that are able to speak that language. as opposed to us forcing technical people to learn the hotel industry. So that's amazing wisdom. So guys, I got to cut it off, but we can keep going after we let everybody get off the line. This has been a fantastic panel. I think there's been a lot of really great interaction. I think we talked about some pretty heady stuff in a way that was pretty approachable and pretty understandable. So thank you both for that. And that was kind of exactly what I expected when I invited you both. I think that we were able to really get into some cutting edge parts of the industry, some futurist part of the industry, but in a way that wasn't intimidating and wasn't scary, that was very approachable. So thank you guys both very much. For the students watching today, I hope you enjoyed it. Keep in mind that this is available if you want to watch it again on your Moodle system. And other than that, hope you enjoy the rest of the series, and thanks very much. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.
Take care. Take care, guys, and good luck.
Thank you, guys. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, ma'am.